Okay, guys. Okay. Welcome, everyone, to the Eternal Spoiler Breakdown as it goes. We have been introduced to the first new mechanic of the Dusk Road, which I keep wanting to call all of these different things. I have a lot of names associated with roads and duskiness and darkness associated. So I've tried to call it the Grim Road and the Dusk Walk and the Grim Dawn and I don't know, just a dozen other things, which is okay. I think the Dusk Road is actually a really cool name. It's just, for some reason, it just melds in my head to a bunch of other things. But I am pretty excited by the new cards that we're going to be talking about. And the first one that we're going to be talking about is the first of our cards with this new mechanic. So we're going to talk about him. And we're going to talk about the new mechanic, which is Ally. Okay, so Ally has a number of bullet points on it, but the basic idea behind any Ally effect is that it is essentially an ultimate where if you see an ally, either when you summon it or when the ally is summoned, if in any situation you have something of the ally of your type in play, then you trigger that ultimate and get the thing. So with Milos Azaleo, having a gunslinger ally, if you play him out with a gunslinger, or if you play a gunslinger while Milos Azaleo is out, Milos will get double damage. And that will be something that you can trigger once, and that will definitely allow him to be kind of ridiculous. So yeah, this is the new mechanic, and hooray, it's fun tribal stuff. This is just a mechanic that's really hard to go wrong with. You can overdo it on tribal, but clearly this tribal mechanic is not doing it. It is specifically trying to get just an impact where you definitely have some benefits from getting the ally effect, but having a huge amount of them doesn't necessarily make a big difference because the ally effect only triggers once, and therefore just basically having a high density means that you have a higher chance of triggering those allies. You get more value out of the card, but it doesn't force you down that path in a way that's super strong. Nonetheless, you get to play gunslingers, you get to play dinosaurs. There's a dinosaur tribal card. You get to play Valkyrie tribal. There's going to be a lot of interesting tribal cards that we'll be talking about, but a lot of the factions that we know already to be very popular in Eternal, gunslingers, dinosaurs, Valkyrie, I'm going to go ahead and guess that mages are going to get something. Explorers might have something. There's a lot of interesting stuff that will potentially have allies, and yeah, it's gonna be a pretty solid mechanic, I think. Basically, it's just gonna do what you want to do. Good creature focus, a lot of cool summon effects happening. You can repeat the ally effect if you, in some way, get the card back, because it is essentially an ultimate. So if you have a card that gives, say, I believe the example given in the Eternal the promo is if you have something that gives an ally of +2/+2 and you get the +2/+2 on the unit, then you can basically kill it or safe return it and then resummon it and get the +2 and +2 again if you can trigger the ally again. So it is an ultimate that you can repeat over and over again in the same way that you can repeat other ultimates, just by recurring the unit onto the field and then getting that thing a second time, which is pretty cool. Milos is interesting in a couple of different respects. So first off, there's a new rebellion, which is good. We haven't really seen much of the rebellion since the start of the Empty Throne, or the end of the Empty Throne, rather. During the campaign, Roland does his little harsh rule, and that basically just wipes up a bunch of the rebels. Everybody gets scattered, Jek and Ikaria get away, but basically, you don't see any rebels in Omens, really. There are a couple of people just sort of wandering around, but there's not anybody who's a focused rebellion against Roland. Everything that's going on is going on in Argentport, and the fire stuff is all going on in Skycrag and other colors. So, yeah, we are finally seeing Rakano coming back, and this is a Rakano card. It is a member of the Rakano Rebellion. And it is the son of the leader of the Rakano Rebellion, General Azaleo, that 6'4" guy who gives +2 to everyone and is just kind of the grizzled old soldier. And this guy is a lot doofier, and so are all of his buddies. If you want to look at this art here, which we will just do for a second, you can see that the rebellion has gotten a lot more grizzled and Mad Maxy. They look a lot more beaten up and also a lot happier and more silly, and I'm kind of into that. That's a really good just sort of interesting art style that they're going for, and I think it's reflected in a couple of the other cards that we've seen. So yeah, that's interesting. Like, just from a story perspective, Azelio's telling us a little bit of a story, and that means, you know, cool things. And that mustache is, yeah, that mustache is 100% awesome. There you go. You know, yeah, it's a good mustache. So Azelio. On his own, Azelio is a 2/3 rebel gunslinger who really likes weapons. If you give Azelio a weapon, he will pay for the weapon himself by attacking with that weapon and giving you +2 power for that turn. So if you put, say, a Crown Launch Longsword on this guy, then it doesn't cost you tempo, you just get a 4/5. That's something that aggro decks are going to be really interested in. I think there's some interesting things going on with 3-drop aggro, like sort of the switch into mid-range for Rakano, and that's always a deck type that I really, really like. I like playing around with Navani decks. I like playing around with decks that sort of move into the later game of Rakano. And Azelio's doing that, I think, pretty well, because he allows you to play like the 3-cost cards, and then he also gets weapons, and then you get to play even more cards on top of him. So if you can find ways to draw cards in Rakano, if you can do things like, I mean, even just like Praxis Outlaw, stuff like that, where you're just playing out all of your cards because you have so much power gain, then like this guy actually like allows you to pay for those cards and get a bunch more stuff out on the board really, really fast. In that sense, he's sort of the opposite of the other Rakano card that we're going to see here, which is Stella, who builds a much more like dedicated board and is a little bit more focused on like going deep, whereas Milos Azelio, I think, can really specialize in going wide. But he likes weapons and he likes gunslingers, and those two things are both things that Rakano does a lot. So we'll probably see a lot of him in that deck, and we might see him in some Stone Scar decks as well. Like, he's okay with Rapid Shot, he's okay with a bunch of other things. Milos in particular is interesting because, similar to the Champion of Impulse, one of the things that he actually does is activate such that he can play tricks. So even if you put a weapon on him, you get to attack with him, and he'll still be able to Rapid Shot, he'll still be able to Torch, he'll still be able to do all the things that Stone Scar and Rakano aggro decks really love to do. So yeah, there's some cool stuff going on with him. I think that he's pretty interesting. He is double red. That's not an easy influence requirement to meet in an aggro deck, because you really, really want that consistency there, but he's kind of going to be a pretty solid top to middle end for that deck, because you can just throw a really good weapon on him and have a grand time. So yeah, Azelio's doing some things. I'm pretty excited about his main ability, probably more excited about his main ability than I'm about his double damage ability, but a unit that likes weapons that also has double damage, like, if you get a weapon on him and you get the double damage, then he's kind of nuts. Like, he's just doing a ton for you. So you can play a weapon on this guy, play a gunslinger ally to give him double damage so that he does like 10 damage, attack with something, and then you'll still have like that +2 power to play a trick and remove a blocker or something like that. That might be a little bit tricky, I think, because you think you have to attack. I think you have to actually get them to the block stage before you play removal. I could be wrong about that. But yeah, like, nonetheless, you can definitely get some interesting play out of him. He adds a lot of interesting things to do, basically, after attacks. And he means that you generally always have a trick up, which is something that is going to be kind of fun to have. And he's a ramper. Like, if you can actually ramp an additional +2 power off of Milos, like if you could play a Spiked Helm into him, or if you play a Crown Launch Longsword into him and he somehow lives for like 3 turns, then, like, yeah, he can actually get you to like 6s and 7s, which is pretty good in Praxis-y decks, can be very good in a lot of different decks if you're trying to get just a lot of damage out very, very fast. We could see Flame Blast coming back with Milos Azelio. Might be a thing that happens. Hard to say for sure. Okay, so yeah, Ally is really interesting, and we have a couple of other Ally cards to talk about. Let's go ahead and look at the Elysian one, because that one's really interesting. Scale Tender, 4 cost 3/3 with Dinosaur Ally. Create and draw a 3/3 dinosaur with Overwhelm. So if you have a dinosaur, you play this, you get a dinosaur. And if you do other things, then, like, yeah, like, basically if you play this and then you play a dinosaur, you also get a dinosaur. Just, at some point you're going to get a dinosaur out of this card. So, in Elysian, this card is like a slightly stronger, slightly more conditional Yeti Troublemaker. Yeti Troublemaker is a 3/2 for 4 that has Echo. This is a 3/3 that gives you a second card that is also a 3/3, but it has Overwhelm. So, higher on stats, a little bit more conditional. You need the dinosaur, and you need some other things to happen to make it work. Some cool things about this card: it is an explorer. I expect there to be some explorer allying as well, so actually having an explorer ally would probably be a big thing. I don't think that there's going to be sentinel allies. I'm guessing that's not going to be a thing, so that might be a reason to run Scale Tender over Sandstorm Titan in a slot if you're trying to make a really dedicated ally deck. But the other thing about it is that like there's plenty of space, I think, in Elysian 4 slots. You definitely need something else at that slot in addition to Sandstorm Titan, and Scale Tender might be the thing if you're playing a dinosaur or explorer deck. Overall, this card at the moment mostly just looks like a decent draft common to me, or draft uncommon to me. It could be that it's actually quite a bit stronger. The thing I really like about it is that it plays with Evelina, because I'm pretty sure, and this is an ordering thing that we'd probably have to see gameplay of to make sure of, but my guess is, because Eternal generally favors these kinds of interactions, is that if you play Scale Tender with an Evelina out, it will draw a dinosaur, and then it will also give you the +1/+1 bonus. But I'm not sure. It might be that you don't get the +1 bonus until after the card is drawn, so or until before you get the +1/+1 bonus before the card is drawn, and you don't get the 4/4 dinosaur. But nonetheless, like explorers and dinosaurs still going together, so we can definitely see a little bit of fun stuff going on with that, and that could be kind of interesting. The thing that I like about this card in particular is that it creates and draws a 3/3 dinosaur. So if you're playing it in a Crown of Possibilities deck, it works very similar to a Clockroach. You can essentially play this card to get an extra card that is drawn. That card will already have one skill on it, which means that it has a higher chance of getting Destiny or Revenge or all of the things that you actually want, like the dinosaur, to have. So yeah, you can get some interesting value out of this card in Crown decks, and it should be a really fun, probably B-level card in Crown. So could be kind of interesting in that respect. This card looks like fun. I think that it's going to be a really, really fun draft card, and I'm excited to see if it finds some ranked deck homes. I'm not sure if it has any yet, but it certainly could. So we will see. Okay, what else is going on? Well, that one we can leave for last. Let's look at Thudrock. Yeah, Thudrock. Alright, not to beat you over the head with it. There we go. So, Thudrock, 4 cost for a 5/3. Stat line's, okay. 5/3 is probably the worst stat line, but at 4 it's not too bad, and like you're getting a reasonable amount out of this card. When Thudrock hits the enemy player, play a snowman with strength and health equal to the number of Yeti. As far as I know, the snowman doesn't do anything. I'm pretty sure it's just a vanilla snowman, but nonetheless, Thudrock is pretty fun. There are a lot of ways to get blue cards to hit enemies, and if you can actually get some snowmen out of it, then that seems kind of nice. I think that this card is not that great, just a little bit off on the offside, but I like a lot of things about the art, and I like a lot of things about the style. Like I like that he has built a gunslinger snowman. I kind of wish that snowman was a gunslinger type, but I'm guessing it'll just be a snowman. But I like that it has the little ammo belt and the sheriff's badge. It looks like Thudrock has like robbed Ironthorn or something like that, and that's pretty delightful. But yeah, he's an artisan, you know. He's doing his job. He's making things. Do you want to build a snowman? You know? Yeah. This card is adorable. I really, really like it. I don't know if it's good. I'm pretty sure that it's not. But yeah, Yetis can surprise you. They can sometimes do some interesting shenanigans. I think that 3 health is a little too much to overcome. It's also just in range of Banish. Like, it's more likely to be a really, really fun legendary that you occasionally pick up in drafts. But nonetheless, I like this card. It's pretty shiny. So. And if you have a bunch of Yetis, it does generate a lot of value, so that's nice. Okay, so there are 2 left. We're going to talk about Agile Death Jaw last, and probably make some wild speculation. Should be fun. But this one is the other interesting gunslinger. We have Stella the Shotcaller, an Aegis gunslinger 2/2 for 3. That 3-cost 2/2 stat line is actually really interesting. There are not that many Aegis cards at 3. I think there are actually none at the moment. But I believe Bartholo used to be an Aegis 3/3 2/2 at 3, and that was pretty dang strong. Thunderbird is the other one that is a 2/2 Aegis at 3, and that's not as great, but this one is actually doing something really interesting. So Stella the Shotcaller, when she attacks while wielding a weapon, each gunslinger and weapon in your deck gets +1/+1. So essentially, in an all-gunslinger deck, she has a really good chance of giving you a huge amount of cool bonuses, basically similar to a Navani attack. So if you equip Stella the Shotcaller with, say, a Hammer of Might on turn 4, she becomes a 5/5 with an Aegis. That's pretty rough. And then when she attacks, she gives the rest of your weapons +1/+1 each, which means that you can actually get a really reasonable amount of value out of this card. In a standard Rakano deck, like, it is a card that does a lot. But you're looking for a little bit more of a long game with it. You're looking for cards like Sword of Ikaria and Auric Runehammer. You're looking for more of the mid-range stuff, and you're hopefully looking to draw some cards, maybe off of the new draw card spell Bounty? Wanted poster? Wanted poster. Yeah, that's it. So if you can draw a bunch of cards and get the +1/+1 bonuses on them, that can get out of control really, really fast, and Stella can consistently attack over and over again, unlike, say, Navani Warsinger, who is the card that you play at 4 in this same deck, maybe. I really like stacking Navani effects. I think if you can get a bunch of these threats out, then that's a really big deal, because basically it means that all of your stuff is just going to be making stuff bigger. Like Rakano Artisan into Stella into Navani means that there's almost no way that you're not getting your relic weapons beefed up, and there could be a really interesting exchange of units and relic weapons that gets a little bit more aggressive than a standard armory deck. Some people are saying combine this with bad news. Yes, that does work. One thing I do find sad about Stella the Shotcaller in comparison to Navani is that Stella the Shotcaller does not stack War Cries. So she doesn't have Navani's War Cries affect everything in your deck effect, meaning that she does not do the same thing with Hammer of Might and Helm? Oh gosh, I forget what it's called. Ornate Helm? War Helm. That's right, the 1/0 that gives you a War Cry. So if you get extra War Cries on her, that doesn't increase the amount that she's attacking for the +1/+1. I think this card is very powerful. Like, I think that overall it's just like a really solid green mid-range card. It's going to be very good in Argenport decks. It probably will be pretty good in Rakano decks, and I think Argenport may be its strongest area. Like, it is just a really solid replacement Bartholo for that slot, because you are getting like a huge amount of extra weapons, and you've got the access to Finest Hour, you've got access to all of the removal you need to make sure that Stella attacks across and gets all of the damage that she wants. You've got access to the weapons that give her extra health and mean that she trades well with units, like Hammer of Might, Crown Watch Longsword, basically anything along those lines. And then, of course, you have access to Tavrod, who already likes weapons. So yeah, there's a lot of things in that really makes Stella an interesting Argenport card. And I think that she'll probably have a place in Rakano as well. It looks like there is definitely some design space being allocated towards the Weapons and Gunslingers deck, so I would expect to see more supports for Stella, and I would expect to see some really interesting Rakano decks coming back. So I'm excited. Yeah, she's going to make a... Between Stella and Milo, I think we have a new Rakano archetype coming out. I don't know what it's going to look like, but it'll definitely have a lot of weapons and gunslingers in it, so that's going to get pretty exciting. Someone is asking about Stella Queen. I think you want to go Milo Queen, but if you go all 3 colors, then you can do some things. Okay. So, allies looking pretty solid. We have new gunslingers just shooting stuff up and having a good time. There's a cool weapon focus in Rakano that seems to be coming out, and that's also going to help out with Argenport. Oh, there is a relic weapon that I almost missed, Inquisitor's Halberd. Let's go ahead and throw that out. 3/1 Valkyrie Ally +2 armor. This card is really good. Yeah, I'm very down with this card. I like Talon of Nostrix as a 2/2 weapon quite well. Inquisitor's Halberd actually justifies cards like Stalwart Silverwing in a pretty big way. Basically, if you play this card as a 3/3, it's pretty likely to kill something that is essentially slightly smaller than it. Like, on curve, this card will probably get you the value that you're looking for. So that's really nice in and of itself, but also if you have any sort of weapon recursion effects, then you can continually trigger this ally to make this Inquisitor's Halberd have more and more armor. And it also works well with War Cries, it works well with all of the things that are generally going to happen in Argenport and Rakano type decks, so if you are playing this card as like a very nasty like removal card, I think you're getting some decent value out of it. But all of that is just like sort of the tip of the iceberg, or the icing on the cake rather, not the tip of the iceberg, because basically this is a 3-cost removal card that does a decent amount of damage to a unit and gives you an extra health to do it with. Like, yeah, it's not going to kill everything, but it's going to kill most things at a very reasonable price. So like, this is going to be fairly inefficient removal for like some bigger stuff, but also it'll kill Auric Interrogators, it'll kill Ian the Abductors, it'll kill all of the 2/2s in Rakano and Skycrag, and all the 4/2s and the 3/2s as well. Like, it's just going to be a very good piece of removal for you that you can also use with Valkyries, which you're going to have, to get a really bigger weapon that can often be a 2-for-1. So I'm pretty okay with that. Yeah, no, this card is very solid, and overall, like, I think it's quite strong. Someone's asking why this card is a rare. It's because it's sick in draft. Like, Valkyrie Inquisitor's Halberd is just nuts. You should definitely draft this card if you have Valkyries. Like, because a 3/3 weapon, it will kill 2 units almost every time guaranteed. Yeah, no. It's definitely a rare. Alright, so, Agile Death Jaw. Let's go, let's go. Alright, we got one last card spoiled. We don't have the mechanic spoiled. So, now we get to learn and speculate wildly about what's going on. It sounds like there might be some sort of day-night cycle being added in to Eternal, and that's really interesting. I am worried about that concept, but we will see how it goes. It could be something that triggers off of cards, but I'm not sure if that's going to be what happens. Like, that's a sort of parasitic type design where if you, like, there is a card ability called Nightfall. So it could, I'm guessing that Nightfall, if you play a unit, will just cause it to be night. I actually have 2 guesses as to what Nightfall is. One is that Nightfall is a summon ability that causes it to be night, and thus, of course, all sorts of cool things happen at night, such as ambush at night and other things like that. The other is that it is a fate ability, such as where you draw a card, it just becomes night, which would give you sort of like a really interesting day-night cycle that your deck is managing based on how many night cards that you put inside your deck. And that would be interesting to me as well. But I don't know how long Nightfall would last, how long night is in general, whether there are ways to dispel the night, whether or not night is on a time cycle. Like, it could be that the game just automatically like tracks day and night now, and that would be an interesting aspect. I don't know if it's going to be something that Eternal would do for a permanent basis, but if you have night cards, then maybe that's the thing that happens. So we don't know yet, but I'm happy to speculate on all sorts of random ideas. Okay, so anyways, Agile Death Jaw has ambush at night, and I think it's kind of interesting. Like, it's got a dinosaur sub-theme going on. The main thing about it is that if it is night, then a 4/4 ambush for 5 is okay, not great, but a 4/4 ambush for 5 that also buffs up all of your other blocking dinosaurs can turn the course of an entire fight very, very quickly. Like, you have to kind of be on the lookout for this card, because if your opponent attacks into the wrong set of dinosaurs, then things get pretty bad pretty fast. So basically just any summon effect that can happen off of an ambush can be very, very scary in the right circumstances. And Agile Death Jaw has some interesting play in that respect. You know, there are some ways that you can make him significantly bigger, of course. Like, this is Xenon, so you're likely to have access to Xenon Obelisk. You can give him access to Tessia. There are ways to make him a 5/5 or a 6/6 on the turn that he drops, and that's pretty scary. The overall influence cost of him is very, very expensive. He is double time, double shadow. That's a little bit much for what the card is doing at the moment. but depending on how good the dinosaur meta is, he could be okay. Overall, I'm not too impressed with this card on a ranked scale. I think that the fact that you have to figure out exactly how to get Knight going, it looks like it might be that Knight is pretty easy, makes it so that this card is not going to get value very often. The dinosaur +1/+1 means that you're going to be sort of encouraged to play him on offense as opposed to play him for value, and overall, that just makes this card a pretty good draft rare, because he is a removal card in draft. Because you can play him, give some dinosaurs +1/+1, and then knock something out on your opponent's board, which is really, really nice. That's good if you're playing Towering Terrazons, if you're playing the Ancient Terrazon, like basically any of the like sort of big guys. This guy is just sort of a really convenient removal spell that's pretty fun to play and buffs a bunch of dinosaurs in draft. So I think that he'll be about C to B in draft, should be pretty solid, and we'll see if he gets any sort of play. But I'm interested to hear more about Nightfall, and hopefully we will see something on that soon. That's it for today. Thank you guys so much for watching, or at least to the YouTube folks. For the Twitch folks, we're going to go back to streaming some games. All right, see you guys later.